For-Two-Dus is a Titan Legio of ancient heritage, predating the unification of Earth and Mars through the Treaty of Olympus. The Legio's engines represent themselves primarily with the colors of red and white, with subtle elements of deep black. This painting is trimmed with plates of brass. The banner of the Legio is a barren skull donning the helmet of a Scutari Alpha, likely to represent the strength and sacrifice the Legio endured to defend Mars through the Age of Strife, though this is unconfirmed. Not as ancient as the founding Legios of the Triad Ferrum Margulis, it is known that For-Two-Dus had a presence predating the unification of Mars and Earth at the end of the Age of Strife. The Legio came close to extinction many times prior to its current role in the Great Crusade. This ability to collect itself was probably a contributing attribute to the Legion's moniker of dauntless, a name by definition showing characteristics of fearlessness and determination, something For-Two-Dus took pride in as it remained unbroken despite its perilous losses. For-Two-Dus calls the Great Forge of Mars its formal homeworld, though in its Great Crusade iteration, many of its princeps have never actually stepped foot on the sands of the Red Planet, despite the Legio's rich heritage of Martian defense. Early in the Great Crusade, Mars was home to an overwhelming amount of Titan legions, and even the manufactorums of the original Forge world were unable to sustain the demand of the planet's many legios. In an effort to diminish the strain, the Mechanicum permitted the Grandmaster of For-Two-Dus rights to depart Mars and lay claim to new worlds where it could base its operations. This would allow the Legion to sustain itself in concept, as well as extend the holdings of Mars within the greater Imperium. After the Treaty of Olympus, For-Two-Dus struck out with the Great Crusade's explorator fleets with the intention of securing powerful worlds that were able to sustain their mighty god engines and legion. This would lead to the Legio being sent forth throughout the galaxy as multiple autonomous battle groups in an effort to secure satellite outposts and fortresses of operation. The mission of new outposts was most notably accomplished through the Forge of Bo-Kikatau and the powerful night world of Molech, a world of great historical significance, past and future. The planet Molech had a long history dating back to the Age of Darkness, where the fractured elements of mankind lay isolated in the stars. Molech was positioned within the Segmentum Solar, oriented around Holy Terra itself. Very difficult to reach through warp routes, Molech was home to many glorious and resolute night houses, leading to its very survival through this period of history. The planet itself had a certain resemblance to Terra, as it was roughly the same size and contained an untamed wilderness prior to colonization. Molech, like Terra, also had a large moon which regulated its tides and seasons. During the Great Crusade, the planet and nearby bodies became home to numerous orbital batteries, fuel refineries, and shipyards, leading to an impressive defense if required. The planet of Molech itself was divided into 4 major continents, and it was on the largest continent of Molchar, in particular its western marches, where dauntless would settle. This landmass was along the equator of the planet and home to many noble knight houses. The western marches stretched the west coast of Molchar and contained many coastal cities of value. It was within this region, in particular the Zanark Deeps, that For-Two-Dus would exercise the rights gifted by Mars and establish its largest fortress of operation. The Zanark Deeps originated as eroded sea caves, but became hollowed out into massive caverns and hangars. The very power source would be the sea itself, through tidal reactors and plasma tethers. It was in this landscape that dauntless would spread across the stars and return when required. The explorator fleets of the Great Crusade allowed Mars to extend its reach through dauntless. The Legio itself acted as multiple autonomous battle groups. This detachment led to each battle group adopting different battle strategies depending on the individual theaters of war and the measures required to overcome them. As a result, For-Ti-Dus manifolds over time were impossible to combine together on the battlefield, as they all had different battle tactics, making fusion almost impossible for a full battle group. Across the Great Crusade and the multiple outposts, the Legion lost commonality, sharing only a name and markings. Fearing a crippling disunity across the Legion, the Grand Master and Senior Princeps, who could still remember stepping foot on the Red Planet or never leaving themselves, decreed the Legion would meet on Mars itself once every decade should deployments permit. Each battle group of For-Ti-Dus would send representatives to the Legio's ancient fortress monastery on the Red Planet. During this union, the Legio would exchange stories of victory, defeat, and the tactics that led to them. It was the hopes of many ancient Legio Princeps. This would help bind the scattered Legio and allow some measure of unity across the Legion's many deployments. In the opening days of the Horus Heresy, in particular, the civil war known as the Schism of Mars, it was this very Legion tradition that would cripple For-Ti-Dus through the actions of the traitor Fabricator General Calvor Hal. As one of the opening acts of the Schism, all dauntless engines present at the Legio's reunification were uploaded with scrap codes, causing the God Engine's reactors to overload and destroy the ancient fortress in seconds, along with the God Engines inside it. This event would become known to the survivors of the Legio as the Death of Innocence. This was not the only betrayal the Fabricator enacted on the Legio. In his opening acts, there were at least 2 recorded instances where Mechanicum fleets transporting large dauntless battle groups were fired upon and destroyed by the friendly forces escorting them. In the opening of the Horus Heresy, the Legio had become crippled within its own home and the cold voids of space. When the news of this betrayal reached the few surviving battle groups of Dauntless, each of the maniples remaining feared themselves the last of their Legion ancestry. The pride of the Legio was replaced with an uncontained rage and need for revenge. This swallowed every emotion of the God Engines and the Princeps left to command them. During the Horus Heresy, Dauntless Princeps changed the names of their Legion Titans to represent this newfound darker purpose. The Princeps of Dauntless quickly gained a reputation of willingly engaging the largest enemy positions with little care for their own survival. The Legio became intent on taking out as much of the traitor forces as possible, no matter the cost. This commitment to revenge and newfound drive allowed the Legion Princeps to push their God Engines beyond safe limits and ignore the crying pains of their engines' machine spirit within the MIU. As a result, they were able to ignore and overcome damage that would dominate lesser foes. The loss of engines would force the Legio to use Titans in ill-advised methods with the surviving maniples. Isolated Legio battle groups would be forced to use Scout Titans as heavy assault, or main battle line Titans as scouts. Titans were forced to assume roles they were never designed to hold. An example of this is the Warhound Valor of Mars, which switched its armament to a maximum damage weaponry, hazardously endangering and pushing its own reactor during the siege of Lupercalia City. The Legion's strength, being an element of Mars, was well recorded. Prior to the Great Crusade, the Legion commanded around 127 active God Engines, 1/3 of which were warlord-class Titans. The remainder largely contained a mix of battle line and scout Titans. As For-Two-Dus was an ancient legio, with a strong founding on the Red Planet, they also possessed several Imperator-class Titans within their ranks. An approximate breakdown of the God Engines pre-Great Crusade is as follows. The start of the Horus Heresy, and the Horus Heresy as a whole, would deal several deep blows to Legio Fortidus' ability on the battlefield. Starting off the Horus Heresy, or pre-Crusade, with around 127 God Engines, the death of innocents alone would cost the Legio around 53 God Engines in an instant on Mars, containing most of the Legio's rare engine variants such as the Imperator-class Titans. After the death of innocents, the friendly fire encountered within the Explorator fleets and their Mechanicum escorts would destroy roughly 35 For-Two-Dus engines. This would leave around 40 dauntless Titans to contribute to the Loyalist war effort at the start of the Horus Heresy. With the invasion of Molech itself late in the Horus Heresy, the Legio would lose another large number of Titans. This would actually encapsulate a majority of the Titans the Legio had left in a final stand defending against Horus on the planet of Molech. Of the handful of engines to survive all the previously mentioned events, the remainder would recklessly throw themselves at the enemy in an act of ferocious vengeance. The remaining days of the heresy would grind the Legio's few scattered survivors to a slow death and a war of attrition they could not maintain, having no Forge World to rely on. It's unrecorded if any Legio Fortidus engines survived post-heresy to carry on the legacy. Some notable Legio Dauntless engagements include the invasion of Molech as a whole, as this was a full campaign, and Legio Fortidus had engines contribute in various different ways. In particular, on the Fulgurine Path, where Legio Dauntless fought against all the invading forces of Horus in a final stand marching out of the Xenarch deeps. Legio Dauntless seemed like such a bright flame hailing from the most noble heritage a Titan Legion could hope for. The Great Crusade forced them in too many directions to hold unity, and the heresy reduced them once again to the point of possible extinction. I hope you enjoyed this brief look at another Loyalist Titan Legion. I'll catch you on the next Legio video.